Morning, everybody. My name is Mark Baltzell. I'm the statewide salmon and steelhead manager for the Department of Fish and Wildlife. Welcome to PFMC week day 2. Maybe give it another 30 seconds to a minute to see if other folks want to hop on. Thanks for joining us. Had a few more people tick on this morning. So again, welcome everybody. Again, my name is Mark Baltzell from Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife. Welcome to PFMC week day 2. Our purpose here is to update you on what's going on in north of Falcon and the PFMC world as far as setting salmon seasons. So we're going to walk through that a little bit this morning with some modeling changes from yesterday. We're going to talk about some of the discussions that are on tap for today, over the weekend and early next week. Try to give you a little bit of the lay of the land and then offer you an opportunity to ask questions. So with that, the council directed the salmon technical team to, on ocean alternatives yesterday. So there was some changes made in both the Chinook and Coho modeling that brought things into one salmon option for non-treaty fisheries in the ocean. So there are several treaty troll options. The tribes intended to meet yesterday, but there was an issue that prevented them from meeting in the day. They're hoping to meet today and try to center on that number here before the weekend's over. So moving in that direction. So at this point, I might turn things over to Derek Dapp. He's from our salmon fram modeling team to run through both Chinook and Coho. Derek?
Thanks, Mark. And I might do something a little bit different than I normally do. I might start off with Coho today and maybe spend a little bit more time on that. I think there's a little bit more to talk about there on Coho in the ocean runs than Chinook. I'll share my screen momentarily, so hopefully everybody can see that when it comes up. Can everybody see all right?
Got it, Derek. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Mark. So as Mark said, for Coho, we're now looking at a single non-treaty ocean option, and that would be at 110K. There's still a range of treaty options. And if folks are interested in what those are, there's a set of A and B runs. In the A runs, we're looking at, in the highest option, 16.5K for treaty. For the middle option, 10K, and then at the low option, 0. We can also look at the B options, which should be right here on screen, and we can see those range from a high of 50K, mid of 35K, and a low of 0. So one big change that we saw from yesterday was we have agreed to goals on the quotes, and we also have terminal inputs for the quotes area in this set of model runs. So What we've been looking at as an escapement goal is we're targeting an escapement that is greater than 3150 fish. So you can see here's the escapement coming out of our set of model runs in the B runs. And here is our set of model runs coming out in the A runs. So we're in our runs, it looks like we're above that 3150 mark. However, we also have an objective there of a 20% exploitation rate. And those values you can see in the set of model runs over here and what I'm highlighting now. In the A option runs, we're ranging from an exploitation rate of 19.6% to 20.9%. So in the two higher options, we're a little bit over that Queets objective still. You can see in the B option runs, it's a little bit similar, although a little bit higher in the higher two options on that exploitation rate. We are meeting in the lowest option where it's 0 for treaty troll. Some things to mention. One thing I would call our attention to is the coastal terminal dip-ins. That's one area that we're looking at and paying attention to. The Ho terminal fisheries, there are some dip-ins there, and we expect that there might be some updates in that Ho terminal fishery in the future. So we'll be paying attention to that. As far as the Puget Sound stocks go, we're still in a similar place on many of those two we last talked about, but just very briefly for folks who might be tuning in for the first time or otherwise, we're looking at kind of the two things that we're really looking at in Puget Sound and paying very close attention to are over here in the Skagit. We can see we have an exploitation rate goal of 35%. And we can see that in our set of runs, we're still above that 35% mark. And then for the Snohomish wild stock, we have an escapement goal there of 55,000. And in our runs, we're coming out anywhere from just over 40,000 fish to 41,000 fish. So that's another one that we're paying attention to as we're shaping our fisheries. I might just pause there real fast and see if there's any questions on Coho before moving into Chinook. And Mark, if you could just acknowledge those folks if they raise their hands, since I'm sharing screen, I can't see so easily.
No worries, Derek. I got you covered. Do not see anyone with their hand up. Just so folks remember, if you're on your computer, down at the bottom on my screen, there's a raise hand function. On some versions, there's an emotions tab at the bottom where you can raise your hand.
All right, great. Well, if there are any questions here on Coho, feel free to ask at the presentation if there's anything that's on your mind or anything you can think of as we're going through Chinook or otherwise. But if you're not seeing any hands raised, Mark, I'll move us on to Chinook.
Go ahead, Derek.
So on Chinook, we've similarly dropped to a single non-treaty ocean option, and that ocean option is 59K. So you can see our range of options are over here in these columns D to O. You can see that what those options are signifying is represented in this row 2. So briefly going through those, we have at the very highest option, the Macaw High is 59K non-treaty and 50K treaty. And then we can see moving across the sets of columns all the way to these M to O columns, 59K non-treaty to 0 treaty. We're at a very similar place to what we had been previously looking at in some of our meetings on most of our Puget Sound stocks. The first thing I might jump to is actually the LCNs, our Lower Columbia Natural Toolies. On that stock, we have a 38% total exploitation rate objective. We can see that we're meeting that 38% objective in all of our sets of runs, except the very highest one. As far as Puget Sound stocks go, once again, there isn't too much of a difference from what we've been looking at in the past. There is a little bit of a shift in some areas of about maybe 0.1% ER. And that would actually be upward due to, even though we're slightly lower on the non-treaty option than we were looking at in our high option runs before. There was a little bit of a shift of the time steps where we adopted kind of the time step splits of that alternative two. That would be a 60-40 split, being more weighted toward time two than we had previously been looking at. But otherwise, briefly going through our Puget Sound stocks, Nooksack Springs were exceeding, I see Kyle's hand raised, so I'll just pause for a moment.
I was just going to say, I just got an email from Carl Nyman. Apparently, there's some people who were using the link from the 4 p.m. meeting earlier this week, thinking that was the link for the morning briefings. So I'm trying to send the link, the right link out.
I just did that as well, Kyle.
Okay, I did too, but I don't know if we want to wait a few minutes for, I don't know how many people are waiting, so.
Roger that. I guess maybe I'll just pause and see if we can give those people a moment to join us. Hey, Mark, when you were distributing the link to folks, did you maybe accidentally send the Mark Baltzell link? Because I see that there's now 2 Mark Baltzells as panelists. You're muted, Mark.
You don't need 2 Mark Baltzells.
Definitely not.
If other Mark Baltzells do join, though, I can rename and change them to attendees. So that's not the worst thing in the world to happen.
The first one must have panicked when he saw he was Mark Baltzell and left. I grabbed the link off the website and the email I sent. So,
do you think we're just about ready to start back up, Mark? Or should we give people a few minutes still?
Well, it looks like we've had a couple people join. I don't quite know who was planning on joining this morning and who wasn't from the other group. I know Carl was trying to get on. Given that we are limited on time, Derek, maybe we probably ought to go ahead. Just so folks know, we planned it till 9. We'll probably need to hop off about 8:55 as we have a 9 o'clock co-manager meeting this morning. So we'll plan on going through 8:55 this morning. And then we'll be back here bright and early Monday morning with another update. So maybe Derek, why don't you just maybe back up to the beginning of what you were talking about with Chinook with the changes, and we'll go from there.
Roger that. And maybe as I get done with Chinook, maybe I'll also shift back to Coho for just a moment and briefly cover that for just a very brief overview for those who might have missed it. As far as Chinook goes, kind of starting back from the beginning, what we're looking at here on screen now is the results from our last set of STT model runs that occurred last night. The big change in those model runs was for Chinook was that we dropped to a single ocean option for non-treaty, which would be 59K. We can see right here on screen is our range of options, our range of ocean options over here, starting with the high in these columns D to F. which would be 59K non-treaty to 50K treaty. That represents the Macaw High. We can see kind of the changing range of options. Be looking at this row 2 if you're interested in kind of what the run signifies. From you know, just going across the board, 35K treaty, 25K treaty, and then 0 treaty. What we had mentioned was looking first of all at the LCN rates, the lower Columbia natural toolies. We can see that our objective there is 38%. Our set of runs coming up from last night meets that 38% objective. In 3 out of the 4 runs, only the highest one is exceeding. I had mentioned that the time step splits that we had adopted with this set of runs was as in alternative 2 in the non-treaty, and what that means is a 60-40 split with 60% in that time 2. And because of that, we are seeing some slight changes in ER from where we were looking previously at a 60K non-treaty. In some cases, such as in Nooksack Springs, Mid-Puget Sound, Mid-Hood Canal, Snohomish, Skokomish, and Hoko, we saw an increase of about a 0.1%. Going into some of our Puget Sound stocks and just where we're at. First of all, Nooksack Springs, we see that we're exceeding in 3 out of 4 of our runs. We have an objective there of 10.5% SUS. Skagit Springs, we're exceeding in all 4 of our runs. We have an objective there of 10.3% SUS. Skagit Summer Falls, again, all 4 of our runs, 17% SUS objective. Stillaguamish, we can see that we're exceeding in all 4 of our runs as well. Our objectives are over here in this column B, 8% unmarked SUS and 12% marked. The mid-sound stocks are exceeding, but only in the very highest ocean option. Nisqually, in all 4 sets of options, we're seeing rates coming out above that 47%. For Mid-Hood Canal, 2 options are coming out above the 12.4%. And Skokomish, only in the highest option are we exceeding the 50% total exploitation rate objective. Now, as we've mentioned in previous meetings, these runs are still with a treaty troll at 8,500. And of course, there are still some very important regional discussions occurring for many of these stocks, but we'll be paying attention to their shaping here in the near future. I might pause and see if there's any questions on Chinook before diving back into Coho for very, very briefly, just for a moment.
Remember, folks, with the new technology, there's a raise hand feature down below. There's also on some versions, there's an emotions button in which you can raise your hand. Don't see anybody, Derek. Maybe you can just, for those joined us late, just touch on Coho again briefly. That'd be appreciated.
Sure, thanks, Mark. Going over to Coho, we once again narrowed down to a single ocean option. You can see what these ocean options are representing in this top area over here. So for non-treaty, we can see that we're at 110K is our ocean option there. Right now we're looking at the A set of options. The A set of options, we're looking at a treaty troll of 16.5K in the high, 10K in the mid, and 0 in the low. We of course have a second set of options over here for treaty troll. We can see in these B set of options that we're looking at 50K treaty troll, 35K treaty troll, and once again, that 0 treaty troll. One of the big areas of change in the runs last night was particularly on Queets, and there was a few things that happened there. So first of all, we have an agreed to escapement objective for that stock, and that agreed to escapement objective is 3,150 fish. And you can see in our set of options, our ocean option runs, we can see where we're at with that. So coming out above, I will scroll down to Queets on this one so that we can quickly look at that. So that would be over here in this section. The other thing, however, that we are that we're managing to is a 20% exploitation rate, and we can see how it's shaking out on this set of runs right here. In the highest option for the B option runs, we're looking at 23.4%. In the lowest ocean option, we're looking at 19.6%. We look at the A runs, and we still see that we're slightly above on our two higher options, and then below on that lowest option. One other thing that's important to note for Queets is that we've updated our terminal inputs in this set of runs, so those are incorporated into this set of modeling for the Queets River. One area where we haven't updated those, where there might be updates in the future to those terminal inputs, is in the Hoh River. That's important because the dip-ins from the Hoh River terminal fishery are impacting that Queets stock by a little bit here. So that's something that we'll be paying attention to in the future. Very briefly scrolling up to Puget Sound to see where we're at on Snohomish and Skagit, two stocks that we've been monitoring throughout the process. And we can see that for Skagit, we still have an exploitation rate objective of 35%, of course. And we can see that we are exceeding that objective in all three of our ocean options. For Snohomish, we've been targeting that escapement goal of 55,000. And we can see that we're still, we're anywhere between around 40K and 41,000 on escapement there. So that's another one where we'll be paying close attention to and kind of monitoring what's going on with it. Anyway, I'll just pause there and see if there are any questions about Coho or if there are any more lingering questions about Chinook.
I don't see anybody, Derek. Thank you. Oh, wait, there's one. Looks like Norm has his hand up. Or Kitsap Pogie Club. You should be able to unmute yourself. You were unmuted for a second there. We don't hear anything if you're trying to talk.
You're unmuted now on our end.
Unfortunately, we're not getting you through. I might encourage you to maybe drop out and drop back in and see if that helps. Maybe I'll just start talking. So thanks again, Derek, for going through the modeling. Really appreciate that. So just so folks know kind of the schedule for today, we have a all co-manager and WDFW meeting starting at 9 for a couple hours. Following that, we have a meeting with Skagit tribes. This afternoon, the state has a meeting with Tulalip on the Snohomish. We also had a meeting yesterday with Tulalip on Snohomish River objectives, both Chinook and Coho. We've got some expanded brood stocking needs we're trying to reach there for our summer fall program, as well as our conservation concerns for Snohomish Coho that have been in place for a number of years. So had some good conversation on that yesterday, bantered around some different ideas for shaping fisheries a little bit different than what they are in the current package. So as we get some time today, we're going to be doing some modeling to look at those effects. I had promised one of our other advisors the other night that I was going to look at some stuff from him. So working on that today too. We don't have any plans to offer any changes to our fisheries package today. There's a number of moves that the tribes are waiting to make, but they are waiting until the treaty troll option gets down to a singular option, and there's some moves made on that winter treaty troll fishery that has some significant effects on a number of Puget Sound stocks. So everybody's kind of sitting in a waiting game for right now. Our goal would be to start shaping fisheries on either late today after some of those discussions happen, or early Monday. I think we're part of today's morning meeting with the co-managers is to try to schedule a series of meetings early next week so we can try to get to final resolution on a fishing package for this year. There's a number of bumps in the road, or a number of things we need to get past along the way, but I think we're all pretty optimistic that we can get there. So that's kind of the schedule for today. Just take a look really quick, and so there's a question in the chat, and then probably the question he was trying to answer. It says, how do the new model runs affect our proposed fisheries package? I don't think they do very much. It was pointed out that the way and I think Derek talked through this, the way those splits happen in the ocean, whether it's like a 60-40 split or a 50-50 split between the spring and summer season, has different effects on Puget Sound stocks. So the way it was modeled this time had like raised the exploitation rate by 0.1% on several stocks. So that's really the only significant effects. I think Derek went over some of the coho concerns, but right now our fisheries package is, as was laid on the table kind of early in the process, right around north of Falcon 1. We've made no changes to that fisheries package yet. Carl, go ahead.
Yeah, hey Mark, but yeah, my question is only just, you know, what the next update is and what link we're going to use. I'm assuming it's going to be Monday morning around the same time.
Yep, all the daily links that start at 8, those links are on our website, and we can shoot them off to the advisory group too. But yeah, all the daily Zoom link is on the website. We'll be using that one. Carl is an advisor for our Puget Sound advisory group. There may be an opportunity to get those. We may have a need to get those folks together separately from one of these. And Carl, if that's the case, we'll send you out a separate meeting invite for that. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Yeah, again, not much to share this morning. Apologies for that. I think we'd all wish we were a little farther along in this process. But this happens sometimes where it's kind of a hurry up and wait. So appreciate everybody's patience. Keep checking our website. I think we're going to try to get some of the current modeling up on the website for folks to look at today. So keep checking that for the most current updates. And again, we'll be back here Monday morning to talk through any of the meetings that happened today, any movements on a fishing package, and then hopefully by Monday we're talking through some of the changes that we may propose on the fishing package going forward. Any other chances for questions or comments? Well, great. Again, can't thank you enough for joining us. Really appreciate everybody's time checking in. So stay tuned, be safe, and we'll talk to you on Monday. Have a great weekend.